But also I want to caution you. The reason why it's so important and why the schedule had to be changed in addition to everything else is that we need to take in consideration the times that we are living in, okay? We're living in some very, very serious times. In about 2 months from now, we'll be moving up to what could be anticipated or is anticipated as the possible year of history. And the reason why I say that because many things are going on. And I'll just briefly give you that before I turn it over to Sheikh Ali. Number one, we're talking about 2020. And 2020, in relationship to what's going on in the country today, as we can see that the country has gone into what we refer to as a civil war. It's not physical yet, but it is a civil war. And this war, the animosity between citizen and citizen, brother and brother, husband and wife, is so thick in this country in terms of partisan politics that the historians have said that they have compared it, they have compared it with the Civil War. Okay, that is the extent that it has reached. Imam Jamil once said to me that when two bulls get to fighting, the only thing that suffers is the ground. And what you got right now is a country split right in half, and they're fighting. They're going at each other, and the ground is suffering. What is the ground? It is the institutions, the social institutions, the political institutions, the economic institutions. Everything is suffering if you can look at it very clearly and go and get past the cosmetics. Everything is suffering. The plight, the direction of the country right now is unpredictable. So understand what you're seeing on the TV set. This is 2020. And everybody's dependent upon what they call the ballot. The ballot's going to settle everything. But then when you go back to El-Hajj Malik Shabazz, Malcolm X, he said it either will be the ballot or the bullet. Meaning that if these people don't settle their animosity by the ballot, then you could see a situation coming up from 2020 on where they start grabbing guns and they will actually be fighting in the streets. Again, we're talking about citizen against citizen. But also, 2020 is the opening door to a new decade. This is what's so interesting. It's the opening door to a new decade in which much has been talked about the science. Much has been talked about science and technology. I was looking on the news a couple of weeks ago, and I saw this robot. He was 176 pounds worth of metal, man, and he was doing body flips, like he was waiting for this decade to come in, this decade of what they call AI. And I started thinking about the Matrix. And then also, they're now selling tickets to trips to Mars. They're already selling tickets. And so I started thinking about, Total Recall, all those films that we were watching back in the days, they're now coming to light. So in one sense, we got chaos in the street, we got fitna among citizen, and then in the other sense, we got a situation where technology and science is moving to a different level. And then I thought about something else, and this is what I'm going to close out with. Back in the late 90s, alhamdulillah, myself and Imam Jamil, we got the privilege of meeting a very, very rare sheikh. It's a sheikh from overseas. And this sheikh that we met, I think Imam Yahya Abdul Karim of the Dar Islamic movement refers to this sheikh, because he used to speak about sheikhs like this in the khutbah, as the great minds of the 20th century. He's a very, very, very learned sheikh. And when I say learned, I'm not just talking about an ilm, but he was learned in wisdom. Had a lot of wisdom. I didn't even want to leave. And so, after 9/11, after those planes went into the building, the Sheikh wrote me a letter. And in the letter, he said, because if you remember, if some of the imams and the leaders can remember, right after 9/11, man, we were like, what in the world is going on? We thought it was the end of the world. Everybody's going into the hadiths and looking in the Quran to see how, try to get some answer in terms of what's going on, because nobody was ready for it. Nobody expected it. And so in this letter, the Sheikh said to me that this will pass. This is what he said. This was 2001. He said that I needed to pay attention to the year 2020. This is what he told me in 2001. He said, pay attention to 2020. And in 2020, he said, begin to look for the major players. Look for the Dajjal. Look for the Mahdi. Look for Isa ibn Maryam, the God ibn Magog. He said, look for these major players. Everything will probably start around that particular year. So here we are, 2020. Again, as I said to you, it's the most anticipated year probably in history. The question is, what are we, the Muslims, going to do in 2020? What are we, the Muslims, going to do, inshallah, in this next decade? What kind of foundation are we going to lay down? And many of the leadership had talked, and we have said, we've gone back to the fact that we had to lay the foundation down back in the 70s and the 80s, and we have talked about that rekindlance, that revival, going back to the concepts and the foundation that helped to build Islamic movement in the country. We talked about reviving our communities, bringing it back to the era of the blueprint that we had taken of the Prophet Islam's communities, and putting that community back together again and emulating the community. And I'll leave you with this hadith. An Ibn Umar radiyallahu anhu. قال قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم من تشرب بقوم فهو منهم. Ibn Umar said that the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, he who emulates a people is of them. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam's community was the best community that ever existed on the planet. It was the pinnacle of civilization. The success story that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks about in the Quran when he says, ye are the best of mankind. Why? Because you avoid the munkar and the fahshabi, and you enjoy what is good and forbid what is evil. The best community. And according to the hadith that I just gave you, if we emulate that community, if we emulate them, then we become of them. And so the imams have decided that this is the best way to move, the way that we focused on in the very beginning. And that is to pattern ourselves by going throughout the country and making sure that our communities are following the blueprint that had been laid down by Allah and His Messenger, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So other than that, I'll close out and I'll turn it over to Sheikh Ali. We have some very, very good speakers. We got two brothers that are coming up that I'm very enthused about listening to, because they're young brothers, but they're young in our book. And these brothers, I consider to be our rising stars. And we need rising stars. That's what we need, because, again, a lot of the imams, we were talking, and we were saying, wow, some of the imams, 40, 50, maybe 50 years we've been putting in. And we're looking at, who's going to take the mantle, who's going to take it to the next direction. And then I thought about the ayat in the Quran, what is it? مَا تَعْبُدُونَ مِن بَعْدِي. When Yaqub said to his children, he said, and what will you worship after me? So this is for our children. This is for our progeny. These are the things that that we're doing, we're laying down that foundation or relaying that foundation down so that our project can come along and take it to the next level. Why? Because, you know, a lot of brothers thought it was going to be a sprint when we began. This is no sprint, this is a marathon. And there's something that Imam Yahya Abdul Karim used to say that was very profound. He said the aspiration and the dreams are sometimes longer than the lifeline. So we have our aspirations, we have our dreams, but the truth of the fact is that there's no guarantee that we're going to be here to be able to see it. And that's why it's so important that we have our new rising stars coming up, being prepared to take it to the next level. So inshallah, without further delay, I introduce Sheikh Ali, and he'll take you through the next program. Assalamu alaikum. Wa alaikum assalam.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله الصلاة والسلام على رسول الله محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم أما بعد جزاك الله خير Imam for that introduction and presentation. Alhamdulillah. Even though it appears to be a small group, in an Islamic gathering there is no small group, especially when we're here for the sole purpose of praising, worship on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and to see how we can best, establish the sunnah of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And as it says, it doesn't matter if it's two or more of you, and when you sit and you gather together for that purpose, the angels come down also, and they gather with us. So we're in good company. This is an exalted assembly. So alhamdulillah. And the other thing is that sometimes the Messenger of Allah, some of the hadiths is reported that he didn't always assemble the people, to come when he wanted to give information. Sometimes he would deal with a small group that's in his presence at that immediate time. But what he did say that, those who are present should convey what they hear to those who are absent. So the message, whatever we get here, has to be disseminated to those people who are not here, because we have a purpose, alhamdulillah, and this is good. And we gather here, just like the Imam said, the house is on fire, the White House is on fire, and it's riddled, with corruption and lying and deceit and all types of perversion. Inshallah, the masajids are the sanctuaries of the dunya. It's the refuge. It's not just a place of prayer, and worship, but it's a place of refuge in which we can take. And that's why we need, to continue, especially those masjids that's been in existence years before, because these are masjids, these are grassroots masjids that basically, reach out to the people, understand the people, and this is very important. So alhamdulillah, this next brother, Imam Abu Sumayyah, I've seen him before, but we recently just really met, and I can consider him my sahabi, a companion, because, the Prophet ﷺ in one of the Sahih hadiths, he spoke about men's minds are like minds of gold and silver. Now most of the time you stop at this. It's a long hadith, but it says, those who are foremost in the time of Jahiliyyah or be foremost, in Islam after they obtain knowledge. Most of the time you read the hadith stops there, but the continuation of the hadith is that it speaks about constricted souls. And those constricted souls are souls that the Prophet ﷺ explained that, before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created the human creation, he created the souls, the spirits first. And he placed them in a it talks about Mahmood, in a guarded area. And he placed good souls with good souls and bad souls with bad souls. And what happens is, it's called familiar souls. So sometimes, you never know. You never know if we were placed in that situation because, you realize you gravitate to people very easily. You like, you know, you meet a brother or sister and say, you know, seems like I've seen you somewhere before, you know. But that, you know, you never know what the situation in Islam is on that high level. So this is basically my feelings about this brother that's coming up now. The Imam, alhamdulillah, I got many respect for him, much respect for him. I see his work. You know, he's working with the community. He's reaching out. You know, he's not just sitting back. You know, he's out there. You know, he travels all over the country, all over the world, and he's doing work, alhamdulillah. So I'm gonna read his profile. Bismillah. Imam Wesley LeBron is a Puerto Rican convert to Islam, born and raised in Passaic, New Jersey. He accepted Islam in 1998 and graduated from Mishka University, where he earned a BA in Islamic Studies. He served as the Vice President of Islamic Dawah Organization of Rockford, D-O-O-R, from 2008 to 2012. And he was the President of the Latino Muslims of Chicago from 2010 to 2012, while living in Chicago, Illinois. In 2012, he returned to New Jersey, where he has been serving as a regular lecturer for area masajids from 2012 to present. He is the co-founder of the president of Esperanza Community in the Hub in Missouri, Codilla. He's got me speaking Spanish now. And Para la Humanidad, under which he has led numerous humanitarian efforts to areas ravaged by natural disasters under the Three Puerto Rican Imams Project. He currently serves as a natural Hispanic Dawah coordinator for Y Islam. So inshallah, without further ado, I'd like to introduce my brother, you know, in Islam, Imam Abu Sumayyah.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وأصحابه ومن تمسك بسنته إلى يوم الدين. أما بعد، فإن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله وخير الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار. I commend in the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the glorious, the sublime, the only one worthy of all worship, all praise, all glorification. I send salutations of prayers and peace upon the finality of prophets and messengers, Muhammad ibn Abdullah, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, upon his family, his companions, and all who follow him in righteousness until the day of judgment. My beloved brothers and sisters, kind of to piggyback off of what Imam Isa was mentioning, I wanted to kind of address the issue where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, لَقَدْ كَانَ فِي قَصَصِهِمْ عِبْرًا, that indeed in their stories there are beneficial lessons. And the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he also said, خَيْرُ النَّاسِ قَرْنِي ثُمَّ الَّذِينَ يَلُونَهُمْ ثُمَّ الَّذِينَ يَلُونَهُمْ, that the best of generations is my generation and those who followed and those who followed. And Imam Malik, rahimahullah ta'ala, he says that nothing will rectify the latter part of this ummah except that which rectified its previous part. And if we're going to kind of look at where we want to go and how we want to bring change, we definitely have to go back to look at, I always tell my community, we always have to go back and look at the seerah of the Prophet ﷺ and the companions and those who came after them. And because of this, I wanted to share a brief story of a tabi'i and extract some points from his life that I believe will help us get to the goal that we are all trying to get to, inshallah ta'ala, in continuing building community, strengthening community, having our kids find a place, the youth find a place where they're going to love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, reconnect with Allah, and carry the mantle. And this is the story of a tabi'i called Amir ibn Abdullah at-Tamimi. And they say that his story gets counted around the 14th year of Hijrah, during the time of Umar ibn Khattab radiyallahu anhu. And they say that Amir was someone who learned the Quran from Abu Musa al-Ash'ari. And that he was very key on setting missions or setting a vision in his life. And that he wanted to follow those out specifically. And he set for himself 3 specific missions after reaching a level of knowledge. He said the first was that he wanted to teach the Quran in Al-Basra. He said the second was that he wanted to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in solitude. And they say that he would do it until he would basically fall out. And the third, that he wanted to serve in jihad fi sabilillah. And the man who is narrating his story is a man from Al-Basra. And the man from Al-Basra, he says that they were traveling and they stopped at a point in their travels. And that he's watching Amir and his movements. And Amir ties his horse, he leaves it food, and he goes through the thickets into the bush, trying to find a place where he can go ahead and be in solitude with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He's not knowing that this man is following behind him, watching him, trying to see what he's going to engage himself in. And the man says that he reaches a point where he gets to a place where he feels he can't be seen, and he begins to pray. And the man says, I've never seen prayer like this before in my life. He said then, after he prayed, he began to supplicate and to make dua. He said, and I can hear him making the dua. And that Amir began asking, saying, Ya Rabbi, by your command you created me and you placed me in the vanity of this world. And you have told me to control myself in it. He said, but how am I to control myself, O Allah, if you in your subtle manner don't exalt control over me? He says, Ya Rabbi, if I possessed everything in this world and someone came to me and asked me for it, I would give it up for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, all of it. He says, Ya Rabbi, my love for you has allowed me to bear any calamity and to be satisfied with any fate. Because of my love for you, I no longer concern myself with the material world. And it was stated that the man, he fell asleep. And that when he would wake up, he would see Amir still worshiping and supplicating. And that this continued until Fajr. And then at Fajr time, he saw Amir perform Fajr, and then that he began to supplicate again. And that Amir, he said, Ya Allah, the morning has come. He said, everyone has begun to move around about their day. And everyone is seeking something from you, O Allah. What I need from you is your forgiveness. You are the most generous, the most kind. Please grant my need and the need of everyone else who is seeking from you this morning. He says, I have asked you, O Allah, for 3 requests. 2 you have granted me. He says, 1 you've denied me. And at this point, the narrator in the story, he says that Amir noticed that he was being watched. And he turns to Amir, and Amir turns to the man, he says, have you been there all night? Have you been watching me? Have you been following me? The man says, yes. He says, please don't tell anyone what you saw. The man says, I won't agree until you tell me what those 3 supplications were. They began to debate until Amir, he agreed. He said, my first supplication was that I felt that my deen, my faith was in the greatest danger because of my attraction to women. So I asked Allah to remove from my heart the love that I have for women until when I saw women, it would be no different, or women, it would be no different than looking at a wall. He said, the second I asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to not allow me to fear anything in the heavens and earth except Him subhanahu wa ta'ala. He said the third, he said, I asked Allah to allow me to worship Him and never ever sleep again so I can worship Him as long as I like. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not grant me the third. And the narrator, when he heard this, he said, oh Amir, you need to take it easy on yourself. He said, attaining paradise is much easier than that which you place upon yourself. And staying away from the hellfire is much easier than that which you place upon yourself. And Amr, he wrote a statement that should be written in gold, brothers and sisters. He said, by Allah, I feel that one day I'm going to feel regret. He says, when it's too late. He says, I swear that I will strive in every way I find possible. And if I'm successful, then it's because of the rahmah, the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He says, and if I fail, it's because I have not exerted myself enough working for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Amir's story, he continues. And it says that the other part of his mission was to go out fi sabilillah. And that when he would go out fi sabilillah, that he would look at the groups until he found the group that he wanted to approach. And then when he approached the group, he says, I want to join you, but I got 3 requests. He says, the first, I want to serve you as much as I can with no one replacing me in service to you. He said, the second, I want to be the mu'adhin without anyone removing me from that job. He said, the third, I want to pay for the expenses as much as I can. He said, and if they would agree, he would go on and join them to go out fi sabilillah. And if they didn't, then he would move on. Amir, as it goes on in his life, showing that he was someone who didn't care about the dunya. They say that during the time of the war of Al-Qadisiyah, that he came in with a big chest full of gold and pearls from the emperors of Persia. And then he told the people, he said, what's in this chest means no more to me than the cutting of fingernails. He said, I swear by Allah, if it didn't belong to Bayt al-Mal, I would not have picked it up and brought it here today. And the people began to inquire, who are you? What's your name? He says, I'm only seeking for Allah to recognize me. I don't want to be known. I don't care about fame. And he walked off. And they say that Amir, towards the end of his life, he was out walking in the street and he saw that the chief of police, who was a Muslim, was oppressing a non-Muslim. And the non-Muslim is yelling for help. And the Amir, he comes to find out what's going on. And when he finds that the Muslim is oppressing the non-Muslim, he immediately jumps in to intervene to save and protect the non-Muslim from the Muslim. To the point that when the people saw this, that they all intervened to free the non-Muslim. They say that the chief of police began to spread rumors about Amir ibn Abdullah Tamimi. He said to the point that Uthman radiallahu anhu had to inquire if these statements that were being made were true. As we know that the time of Uthman was a very complicated time in history. And when he investigated, he found that there were lies being spread about Amir. But the lies were spread so much that the harm that had been done was not able to be undone. So he told Amir, he said, Amir, it's better for you to go with Muawiyah radiallahu anhu and remain there with him. And Amir agreed. But Amir, they say, subhanallah, that the day he was supposed to leave, that his students, his friends, his companions, they met him. And he said, I want to supplicate before I leave. I want to make dua. And I want you to say Ameen to the dua that I'm making. He said, O Allah, for those who spread rumors about me and were the cause of my exile, me being removed from my friends, my family, my loved ones, my companions. He said, O Allah, have mercy on them and forgive them. He says, because I have forgiven them. Give them strength in their religion and worldly life. Envelop them and me and all of the Muslims with your mercy and charity, for you are the most compassionate. And as commonly known, when you look at the lives of many of the companions and the lives of the tabi'een and the righteous after them, that during the deathbed, or on his deathbed, Amr ibn Abdullah Tamimi, when he was being visited, that they found him weeping and crying. And this was a common practice with the righteous. And they asked him, O Amr, why are you weeping? Why are you crying? He said, I'm not weeping because of my fear of death, nor am I weeping because of my love of this life, of this world. He said, but I am weeping because I have found myself at a fork in the road. And one path is ascending to paradise and the other path is descending to hell. And I don't know which path I am upon. And they say that he passed away. But when we look at the life of Amr, beloved brothers and sisters, leaders in the community, imams, we see that Amr was someone that was given education to be a person of mission and purpose. And he was taught this from the companions who were taught this from the Prophet ﷺ. That he lived his life with a mission, with a purpose. He set goals for himself, and he set 3 goals so that he would be able to complete those goals to what could be considered as perfect as possible. And we see that Amr, not only that within these goals, that supplication, dua, was a key point in his life. It is something that I believe our communities are lacking. People don't know how to make dua. People don't know how to supplicate. We have become individuals who supplicate only when times are hard, when times are difficult, when we're going through a trial and tribulation, when we're having a problem with our marriage, when we have a problem with our children, when we have a problem in our communities, that we turn to Allah. Oh Allah, help me. Oh Allah, fix the situation. Oh Allah, change it. But we see that Amr, in his du'as, he was looking at himself. He was reflecting upon him. He was saying, Ya Allah, you put me in this world with all of the glit, the glamour, the beauty, the vanity. You told me to control myself, and the reality is, how am I going to control myself if you don't control me or help me control myself? And this is something that we miss. We know that Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anhu, his famous statement was, Hasibu anfusakum qabla an tuhasib. Hold yourselves accountable before a day comes when you'll be held accountable. This is what needs to be implanted in our communities, especially in our youth. Amr also, subhana rabbil azim, we see that in his dua, he's talking to Allah and he's telling Allah, if I had everything in this world and I was asked to give it up, I would give it all away. Showing us that, subhanallah, we need to teach the next generation that type of sacrifice. The sacrifice that, mashallah, we're not just working and living so that we can have the good things in this life, but we're working and living to establish the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We're working and living and struggling and sacrificing so that kalimatullah, la ilaha illallah, Muhammadan Rasulullah is uppermost on the earth. And I tell individuals that when I was being raised by my grandmother, I remember as a young boy when she would send us to the church, she would say, here boy, $5 and you make sure you put that in the box. Make sure you put that in the box. Teaching me that charity is important, that the house of God, the house of Allah, has to be taken care of before we take care of our own homes. A concept that we forget and lose. Ahmed also said, Ya Allah, because of my love for you, I am able to deal and bear any calamity. Wallahi, tallahi, wa billahi, dealing with people from all around the world, subhanAllah, we find that the Muslims are in so much pain. The Muslims are hurting. As an imam, the calls we get in regarding marriage, mental health issues, the Muslims are hurting. And you find that there is a lack of love. Look, subhanAllah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He has been causing me to run around these last 2 days. Allahu Akbar. I came to New York this morning for the Imam's meeting. I ran back to New Jersey to set up our sisters for their program. I'm running to take Imam Dhul Qarnayn so he can get something to eat because I got the Shaykh with me, mashallah, tabarak wa ta'ala, and I'm responsible for him, right? Mashallah, he's going to eat and be all right. And then we go to pray. And Allah sends us to this masjid to meet a young boy who just came out of prison. Arab. Never been in the masjid to pray in his life. Arab, Palestinian, Muslim. Allah sent us there so that Dhul Qarnayn could give the boy some words of wisdom. The boy is hurting, right? And because they lack the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, these calamities that they're facing in their life, they don't know how to deal with it. But Ahmed is telling us that when we begin to insert that love into the hearts of the believers, right? Because I know that in the beginning, 2 decades ago, as I came into Islam, mashallah, without calling out the minhaj or the methodology that we had came into, you know, a lot of people focused on the exterior of the Muslim. How do I look? Make sure my thawb was nice and crisp, white. My pants above my ankles, my beard nice and long. But my heart was dirty. The heart was sick. So you find that some of those communities 10 years later, 20 years later, are still in the same state of sickness because the heart wasn't worked on. But the Prophet ﷺ, 13 years in Mecca, he worked on the hearts of the believers so that when it was time to tell them, it's time to move into action. It's time to submit completely. Allah is sending down the laws. These are the rules, the regulations. This is the constitution that we have. That the believers will submit and wa ata'ana. We submit, Ya Rasulullah. We're ready. And then we find that Amr radiallahu anhu, Allah be pleased with him, that he was also teaching us about the importance of community. And not only the Muslim community, but humanity as a whole. He said, "Oh Allah, the morning has come and everyone is seeking something from you. I'm seeking your forgiveness, Ya Allah. But I'm also asking you to grant every human being who's in need of something, grant them their need as well." Showing us that we can't be selfish human beings. We have to teach our children not to be selfish. That we have to have that concept of the Prophet ﷺ, ummati, ummati. Shaykh Ali said the White House is on fire. The Muslim world is on fire. Let's speak the haqq. The Muslim world is on fire. We have become those, as the Prophet ﷺ, as he said, they will gather together and they will feast upon you. Right? They will feast, and the feast is on. And the reality is that we need to figure out how we're going to change that. Because we find that, subhanAllah, you see the Muslims in Ramadan, you see the Muslims on Jum'ah, you see the hands up in the air, you see them crying, you see them asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Ya Allah, Syria, Ya Allah, you know, Pakistan, Ya Allah, the Uyghurs, Ya Allah, all of these people, subhanAllah, that are going through all of these struggles and trials, all of these lands. And we see that it's just progressing to get worse and worse. And I can tell you, just like the indigenous community, mashallah, tabaraka wa ta'ala, were the pioneers of establishing Islam in America, that they are waiting for that same establishment to come back and be re-established today. I had one of our immigrant brothers call me the other day, and he said, "Imam, by Allah, I've given up on my people." He says, "By Allah, I've given up on..." "What's your address? What's your organization's name? I'm sending you my sadaqah, Because by Allah, I think Islam is going to only be changed and move forward because of you. The work that y'all are doing. Because our people, it seems like they don't want Islam. We see that, subhanallah, that Amr, Allah be pleased with him, also towards the end of his life, he demonstrated to us the importance of caring for humanity. That when he stepped in for that non-Muslim, he didn't take the side of his brother in deen, but he took the side of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who hates injustice. And he stood up for him, even though that put him in a predicament where he was exiled from his people. Showing that I'm going to be that believer like the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that even if I get put out of my land, I'm going to stand up for what's right, and I'm going to stand up for against what's wrong, no matter what the cost is. And this is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has told us in the Quran, كُنْتُمْ خَيْرَ أُمَّةٍ أُخْرِجَتْ لِلنَّاسِ تَأْمُرُونَ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ وَتَنْحَوْنَ عَنِ الْمُنكَرِ وَتُؤْمِنُونَ بِاللَّهِ. He says, you are the best nation extracted for mankind. Allah is telling us our position, our status on the earth. And the reality is that we need to grab that position. We need to grab hold of that status. We need to hit the streets running. And we need to show the people that wallahi tallahi wa billahi, that wherever the Muslim steps his or her feet, that that land begins to change to gold. That the non-Muslims begin to look at the Muslims and they begin to say, we want you living next to us. We want your houses of worship in our city. We want your Islamic institutions here. Because you, when you come in, you make the change that is necessary. And if there was bad, it goes out like the wind. And we need to realize that wallahi, we are at a fork in the road. Some of us close to others, some of us closer than others, and age in this doesn't matter. And that road is leading to paradise and hell. Something that our youth need to recognize and realize as well. And I can tell you to end, my beloved brothers and sisters, that subhanallah, the people are ready. The people are waiting. As I travel throughout the US, as I travel through the Caribbean, as I travel through Central America, through South America, I can tell you just a month and a half ago, I was at the Mexican border in Tijuana, there in Friendship Park. We established the first prayer and adhan ever called there in that area before. The people were stopping their cars trying to figure out what's going on. And when we realized that their struggles are our struggles, right? Because I couldn't comprehend what it's like until I stood on the other side of the border, on the other side of the wall, where, mashallah, the Mexicans are able to come to the wall from that side, but from the American side, they only have a small window. Only 10 people can enter at a time. And they had to establish what's called a border church, so that the place stays open, because if not, the US government shuts it down whenever they want. And that all these people could do is stick their little fingers through the gate like this and touch their loved ones. And when I was there, I was thinking, subhanallah, these people are ripe for Islam. They're ripe for deen. They're beginning to ask questions. They're coming to Islam, right? And I said, subhanallah, tonight I get to go home to my family. But these brothers and sisters here, they're stuck not knowing when is the next time they're going to touch fingers. Right? And when we go out there, we begin to show them what Islam is like, and that we begin to come in defense of them, they're coming to Islam running. And this is the case everywhere I go. I tell you, I've been places where people never ever heard of the word Islam. I was in Guatemala and Ecuador. We were in the wilderness of Guatemala and Ecuador, and we mentioned Muslims, and they said, what is that? You mentioned Islam, they was like, what is that? You mentioned Allah, they said, who is that? Right. Right. But we need to go ahead and continue to do this work. And by Allah, the work can't be done by ourselves. We need to come together, strengthen one another. We need to put our hands in each other's hands. We need to put, mashallah, our money where our mouth is. We need to put the sacrifice, the blood, the sweat, the tears, just like the Prophet ﷺ did, just like Bilal, just like Khabbab ibn al-Arad, just like all of those who suffered from the time of the Prophet till even the pioneers who suffered here, for all of us, so that we can be Muslims today, inshallah ta'ala, and carry this message of Islam. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم فاستغفروه فإنه هو الغفور الرحيم سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك بارك الله فيكم والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. And brothers and sisters, I'm going to apologize once again, but I have to excuse myself, inshallah ta'ala. I have to run back, close out our sisters program, make sure they get safely into the cars, inshallah ta'ala, and back home to their families. So I would love to stay here with you all, but inshallah ta'ala, through technology, inshallah ta'ala, I'll continue watching in the car on the way home, inshallah.
Alhamdulillah, Allahu Akbar. Jazakallah khair to Imam Abu Sumayyah for that inspiring, presentation. Alhamdulillah, it's always, it's a breath of fresh air when you have people speaking the language of, the presentation, speaking the language of the people and bringing it home, and understand. Then you can always feel. And you can always establish that this is a man that's speaking from not just from his tongue, but from experience. He's walking the walk, as we say, he's talking the talk and walking the walk. Alhamdulillah. Without further ado, our next presentator is Imam Qadr bin Muhammad Amr. Imam, he's the Imam of Masjid Bilal in Syracuse, New York. He's the principal of Madrasa Bilal bin Rabah. He's the associate professor of Quran and sciences at Timbuktu Seminary, inshallah. So Imam Khalid.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الحمد لله رب العالمين وبه نستعين على أمور الدنيا والدين وصلى الله وسلم على سيدنا محمد خاتم النبيين وآله وصحبه أجمعين ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. First, I wanted to thank the brothers who organized the event for thinking good enough of me to ask me to speak during this beautiful assembly, especially in front of all of our elders and more people more experienced in the da'wah field than I can ever be, perhaps. So I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless them in their work, and I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to have mercy on all of our elders, including my father, rahimahullah ta'ala, who has passed. May Allah expand their graves and admit all of them into Jannah. Ameen. SubhanAllah, this gathering, it sends chills up my arms as, a young man that Allah has blessed me. It's like a full circle for me. That I remember as a young talib al-ilm, that my first actual dawrat al-ilmiyya, my first actual gathering of knowledge, and with books that we completed, was with Imam al-Taifa from Baltimore. Most of you, I'm sure you know, right? We were at Masjid Ta Ha. We finished Qawaid al-Arba', Salat al-Usul, and some of Kitab al-Tawheed. And I remember then, I didn't know where knowledge was going to take me. I didn't know what was going to be the path that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was going to send me on. And now I sit back and I'm able to look, and I feel honored that I can sit at the feet of my elders and be honored to give this talk when so many years ago I was sitting at their feet trying to take knowledge. And I've asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless them all and to preserve them for us all so that we can continue to benefit from them and we can carry what they have laid out for us. I was asked to speak about the Medinan period of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. How was it, or what was the experience in Medina? And then when I began to think about it on the drive, how Medina was, I thought that subhanAllah, Medina wasn't much different than what we are experiencing today. That Medina has so many different factions in it, so many different groups, similar to what we have presented in front of us today. But the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he first came to Medina, he didn't address all the different factions. The Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he came to Medina, he didn't identify and look at every problem, but instead he gave a speech and he gave some small words to help to be the resource that should be used after that to build the building blocks of Medina as a society. The Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he came to Medina, the first speech that the people said they heard him say, he said, Ya ayyuhan nas, O people. This includes everyone. He said, Ya ayyuhan nas, afshu salam wa at'imu ta'am. He said, O people, spread the salam. Some of the scholars, they say this means saying assalamu alaikum. And some of them say, mean be peaceful, peace. As our elders used to say, peace. And that was enough. And we know what that means. And it's at'imu ta'am, and feed the people, regardless if they're Muslim or not Muslim. Feed the people. Wasilu arham, and connect the ties of kinship. Wasallu bil-layli wan-nasu niyam. And pray at night when the rest of the people are sleeping. Udkhulul jannah bis-salam. Yadkhulul jannah bis-salam. And you'll enter into Jannah with peace if you do like this. So we look at this narration of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and we see that when the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam came to Medina with all of the different groups and factions, and we're going to identify them so that we can see how this coincides with our different groups that we are presented in front of us today. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he told the people to do some of the most easiest of things that perhaps if we did more of them today, our problems would be less. Our difficulties will be erased if we did these 4 small things the Prophet ﷺ encouraged us to do. That we spread the salam. That we make our situation, regardless who we're in front of, that we have a situation where you see us, you see peace. That even to the extent that the Prophet ﷺ says in another narration about the people who when you see them, you remember Allah. That this should be our character, that when people see us, whether it's in the streets or wherever it might be, that when we see us, they think of peace. They think that they're safe, that they're in a good environment. There's Muslims here. And this is how it used to be. That when people would see the Muslim, oh, the brothers are here. Oh, watch, that's a sister right there. Today, we've lost some of that. And most of it is our fault, the youth. We're not as respectful, and we don't put in the work, subhanAllah, that our elders have put down. So we've lost that. Now people can disrespect or violate a Muslim, and there's no repercussions. There's not even any thought that, there's nothing wrong with that. And the Prophet ﷺ, he continues to wat'imut ta'am, feed the people. Be involved in the community. As our brother Abu Samir was just mentioning, that being involved in the community gives your presence. You don't have to say much. If the people see you and they recognize that their needs can be met by what? The Muslims being present. That if the Muslims are present, no one's going to go hungry. If the Muslims are present in the society, that the people will eat regardless if they're Jew, Kafir, whatever it might be. Then the Prophet ﷺ, he continually said, enjoying the ties of kinship. Everyone here, for the most part, probably has relatives that are not Muslim. But if we join properly the ties of kinship with them, perhaps this would be another reason for them to enter into Islam. And the last part of that advice was Sallu bil-layl wa nasu niyam, that it goes back to what our brother Abu Samir was mentioning as well, us being connected to Allah. Us having a constant connection to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So much so that I remember one of my teachers, he told me, he said, always be connected to Allah. If you're quiet, let it be a time that you're remembering and reflecting upon Allah. If you're speaking, let it be something that you're speaking about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Even to the extent that if your lips are moving, let people think you're crazy, but you're making dhikr of Allah. Always be connected to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If the person's heart is connected to Allah, they can never lose. If our da'wah is connected to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we can never lose, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has guaranteed that if we support His deen, He's going to support us. But we have to be connected to Allah. We have to make ourselves sincere, firstly, remembering that Allah says, وَمَا أُمِرُوا إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُوا اللَّهَ مُخْلِصِينَ لَهُ الدِّينَ حُنَفَاءَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says they weren't ordered, they weren't commanded. The marching orders they were given was nothing except what? To be sincere in their deen. Hunafa, to turn away from everything else that's worship besides Allah, and to make your heart, your focus, your whole idea to be to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and nothing else. So with that being said, we wanted to speak inshallah about the conditions of Medina during the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam came. In Medina during the time of the Prophet ﷺ, there were four main groups. Four groups of people who can be grouped. The first of them were the Ansar. The Ansar were the people, of course, who were in Medina. They established the place for the Muhajirun to come safely. They were there. As we can imagine, perhaps, and Allah knows best, that can be the African Muslims born here in America, or those native Muslims who are from this place, indigenous. So we say Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He mentions about the Ansar, وَالَّذِينَ تَبَوَّا الدَّارَ وَالْإِيمَانَ مِنْ قَبْلِهِمْ يُحِبُّونَ مَنْ هَاجَرَ إِلَيْهِمْ وَلَا يَجِدُونَ فِي صُدُورِهِمْ حَاجَةً مِمَّا أُوتُوا وَيُؤْثِرُونَ عَلَى أَنفُسِهِمْ وَلَوْ كَانَ بِهِمْ خَصَاصَةٌ. Allah ta'ala says about the Ansar that they are those who inhabited the land first. And those who had Iman, they already believed in Allah before the Muhajirun came in groups and masses. So it wasn't so that they needed the Muhajirun to come for them to believe. They believed and submitted to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala before the Muhajirun actually came in masses and groups. And that they didn't find in their hearts any jealousy or any need in regards to what they gave the Muhajirun, what the Muhajirun were in need of. Even though the Ansar were poor, even though they were in dire need for what they gave. So we say to this in regards to our situation here in America, that perhaps the Ansar are our elders that laid down the da'wah for us. That they've sacrificed and given everything that they could and more. As our brother Muslim said, subhanAllah, I remember the stories that I used to hear that people wouldn't pay their rent until the masjid was taken care of. I'll get the rent money up, but the masjid has to be taken care of. Today, subhanAllah, we'll buy an iPhone, we'll buy a new car, we'll buy a new this and that before we even think about giving to the masjid. Because it really doesn't matter to us how taken care of the masjid is. When the Prophet ﷺ said, Al-masjid baytu kulli taqi, that the masjid is the home of every person who has taqwa. But we don't treat the masjid like that. We don't treat the masjid as if it's the building block of our society, if it's where the community is going to become built at, and where all of the ideas and everything returns back to, as it was during the time of the Prophet ﷺ. That he held court in the masjid, that he held the prisoners in the masjid, that they had their disputes in the masjid, that he sent out the armies and dispatched the armies in the masjid, that Ahl al-Suffah stayed in the masjid, 400 plus men. SubhanAllah. Today we don't even have many people stay in the masjid for security reasons or whatever it might be. We're talking about 400 destitute men stayed in the masjid during the time of the Prophet ﷺ. And some of the scholars, they say, why did these 400 men stay in the masjid? They said that not only did they stay in the masjid, that these were not just people who were in the masjid learning, these were the warriors of the Muslims as well. Ahl al-Suffah never missed a battle. Sometimes we don't hear this. We just think that these were the people who were weak and tired and didn't eat. But these were the warriors of the Muslims. And it said that from the reasons why they didn't have jobs is because they couldn't leave and go outside to do business. Because if they would have done business, the kuffar who were surrounding Medina would have killed them, because these are the ones who were always on the battlefield in the foremost of the battle. So they were looking for them. These are the warriors that they wanted to get. As well, some of the times they were nursing their wounds. They couldn't go out and work. But this was the situation that the Prophet ﷺ will make the people understand the importance of the masjid. And this is what happened. And subhanAllah, I remember how it used to be when we used to see the brothers staying in the masjid. I remember as a young man traveling to the masajid, staying overnight and having these different situations, interacting with the elders and hearing these stories. And it inspired me that subhanAllah, I know what it means to be a man. Because I listened to my elders. It reminds me of a famous Arabic poem. That Al-Mutanabbi, he says, Al-khaylu wal-laylu wal-bayda'u ta'rifuni, wal-sayfu wal-rumhu wal-kirtas wal-qalami. And what it means is that al-khayl, the horses, the nighttime, and al-bayda. Al-bayda is commonly understood to be like the Bedouin, the ones who live where it's isolated, it's sort of rough. But we can understand that to be the hood. Al-bayda in reality is the hood. That place that you can't go unless you're built to be there. You can't go in the hood walking and talking soft. Al-bayda ta'rif, and he says all of that knows me. The horses, the nighttime, and the nighttime is the place where it's only safe for the men to be out. You can't be out in the nighttime if you're a lady or if you're a weak man. So he says, al-laylu, it says, al-khaylu, the horseback riding. The horseback riding, as our Shaykh is a horseback riding. You can't ride the horse if you're not strong. If you can't stay up on the horse, you're going to fall off. So these are all signs of manhood. That being able to ride a horse, being able to go outside at nighttime and being able to walk in the hood, right? Without being bothered. وَالسَّيْفُ وَالرُّمْحُ. Safe is a sword and the rum is a spear. So this has a meaning to us that means what? That they know how to do close battle combat and they know how to do far away combat. So that means that every situation that a person is thrown into as a man, he should have the dexterity to know how to handle himself. Well, look at al-qalami and the writing off the paper that's written on and the pen. That not only is he a warrior, but he's a scholar. Not only is he a warrior, but he knows how to carry himself in whatever situation he's placed in. And that's what I learned from my elders. That the Muslim man is not just going to be the man who knows how to read the book, but he also knows how to take care of his family. That he also knows how to protect his society. Because you can't have a society with someone who can just barely wake up to, go pray, but they can't stand up and be a man and survive in front of everything that's placed in front of them. The next group of people who were in Medina, or who came to Medina during that time, were the Muhajirun. The Muhajirun, they came and they gave up everything that they had for the sake of Islam. Our situation is different, of course. Some of the people who come to America, who come to the land that we were born in, they didn't come here for Islam. That's the reality. And we see it in their actions. But that doesn't mean that all of them didn't. Even though a good majority we see, they just open a store, they open a business, and they do more harm to the da'wah than good. Right? But at the end of the day, we still have to work with our brothers who are not from here. We have to find a common ground that we can utilize what they might know and what we know to build Islam here in America. The third group of people that were here, that was in Medina, that we see, were the munafiqun. And we see them very prevalent. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says about the munafiqun, أَلَمْ تَرَ إِلَى الَّذِينَ نَافَقُوا. Allah Ta'ala says, أَلَمْ تَرَ إِلَى الَّذِينَ نَافَقُوا يَقُولُونَ لِإِخْوَانِهِمُ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا مِنْ أَهْلِ الْكِتَابِ لَإِنْ أُخْرِجْتُمْ لَنَخْرُجَنَّ مَعَكُمْ. Allah Ta'ala says about them that, have you thought about those people who were hypocrites, who said to their brothers from amongst the people of the book, that if they kick you out, we're going to come with you. وَلَا نُطِيعُ فِيكُمْ أَحَدًا. And we're not going to obey anyone in regards to, if they tell us to do whatever, what does that tell us that we see with some of our brothers? Right? That they say they're with us, but at the same time they're going and helping the kuffar against the Muslims. They're the ones that when we try to take a step forward for Islam and for the da'wah, they go and say, no, the Muslims don't have to do that. That's those guys. They want to be extreme. So I don't know, practicing the deen is seen as extreme? That a person wants to be on the middle ground of Islam, but you have those Muslims that don't want to practice Islam. So because of their lackadaisicalness in Islam, they want to make the other Muslims look like they're doing too much. The reality is you don't want to do it. If you don't want to do it, be honest with yourself. We can respect the man that says, I'm not ready to do that. But don't try to make the men who are standing up for Islam and are willing to give whatever they have to make sure that Islam has a ground to hold on to here in America. Don't work against us. That's all we ask for. If you don't want to do it, don't work against the people who do. The last group of people who were in Medina were the non-Muslims, the Jews. And the Jews of Medina had a very different quality to them. That they understood that the Prophet ﷺ was the haqq. They knew it without a shadow of a doubt. But their stubbornness was out of their pride that they didn't want to submit to an out-of-prophet. They didn't want to submit to a man that came to be a prophet that did not come from their lineage. So these Jews, they knew the truth, but they refused to accept it. This caused them to be expelled. Because every time that they made an agreement, every time they were supposed to agree and stick with what the Prophet ﷺ did, he gave them options. As we know, when the Prophet ﷺ, he first came to Medina, the Qibla was not towards Mecca. The Qibla was towards Jerusalem. And it stayed like this for about 16 months. And when the Qibla finally was changed back to Jerusalem, the Jews had a huge problem with it. They couldn't understand why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they called the Prophet ﷺ, oh, fool, and all these other different names. But Allah, he gives us a beautiful example of how to deal with our non-Muslim brothers and sisters. Excuse me, it shows us how to deal with the non-Muslims. And from the example that we take is that regardless how much you give them, no matter how much you compromise with them, they'll never follow it. If Allah sealed their hearts to the da'wah, to seal their hearts to the haqq, we don't have to compromise our belief to please them, because they're still not going to follow it. The Qibla was towards Jerusalem for 16 months. It didn't make the Jews or Christians enter into Islam faster. As well, we know that the Prophet ﷺ in the beginning of his time in Medina, he used to try to agree with them in most of what they would do, until he realized and it was revealed to him that they're not going to accept. Then he was known to oppose them in almost everything. To the extent that they said, this man doesn't oppose us, this man opposes us in everything, even how they use the bathroom. But this shows us that our deen has been established. And part of our deen as Muslims is that we oppose the religion of the kuffar. And that we become distinguished as Muslims. And again, from the things that I remember of our elders, were that they always distinguished themselves from the kuffar, whatever it might be, from the way they smelled, from the way they walked and talked. You can tell that's a Muslim man, that's a Muslim woman. There was no confusion. Is that a Muslim? Is that my brother there? Is that a Muslim woman? You knew. And there was an honor in that, to the extent that I remember as a young man that my father used to tell me that, I was young and I didn't want to wear a kufi to school. Right? So my father used to always tell me and stress this fact to me. You have to wear a kufi. But why? I don't, everyone else doesn't do it. Because you're a Muslim and you have to be distinguished as a Muslim. To the extent that I remember, you see a Muslim and you say, Assalamu alaikum. My father and the elders used to stress, no, that's not how it's done. When you see a Muslim, you say, Assalamu alaikum. You be proud wherever you are, regardless who's around you. You make sure that it's known that I'm a Muslim too, and I'm proud to be here as a Muslim. SubhanAllah, there's no shame in being a Muslim. The same way the Prophet ﷺ, they were at war in Medina. It wasn't friends around them the whole time. They were surrounded by enemies. But they made it their business to distinguish themselves as Muslims. They made it their business to stand up as Muslim men, to the extent that we know the story. And we're not promoting, we do this here in America, we break any laws, of course. But we know the story of the Sahaba, that when there was a Muslim woman who went to go buy some things from a Jewish man's store. And the Jewish man, they told her, uncover your face, we want to see you. And we know the kuffar, they say this thing, not because they're afraid, and they want to speak, because they want to see, they're perverts. May Allah guide them. But they like to, harass the women. They like to harass them for their own lower desires. Not because they're afraid. A lot of times our women, they get confused and they think that, the kuffar are afraid if I look like this. They're not afraid. They're just perverted. So they said, take that thing off. We want to see your face. We want to know who you are. So the lady, she refused. I'm not taking it off. So then they put some nails down on the ground, and when she walked by, they grabbed her dress. And up to her knee became seen. And she started to scream because her honor was violated. And there was a Muslim man who was there from amongst the Ansar, and he saw this and ran to her aid. He killed the Jewish person. Nothing else to be talked about. You violated a Muslim woman. There's nothing else to be talked about. And he was murdered behind this. He was murdered. And because of the fact that he was murdered after this, it became another situation that caused stress between the Muslims and the kuffar. But the point was that the Prophet ﷺ, if we know the narration, he never rebuked what this man did. He never said that what this person did was wrong. And we know from the guidance of the Prophet ﷺ that if there's something that's wrong, that he has to correct it immediately. And he never blamed or talked bad about the actions of this man. Because the honor of the Muslim means something. We all look at, subhanAllah, from the effects that we learned from visiting the Kaaba, right? We learned something. That when you look at the Kaaba, You know, there's nothing else in this dunya that just looking at it is worship. But just looking at the Kaaba, the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is worship. There's respect for this house. And if you see how the Muslims behave when they see the Kaaba, when you see how the awe, people start crying and tears are coming, right, seeing the Kaaba. But wallahi, the honor of the Muslim matters more to Allah than the Kaaba. But we spit in the face of the Muslim. We talk bad about the Muslim. The Muslims are killing each other all over the world. We don't honor each other that way, but the Kaaba, subhanAllah, has so much honor in our hearts, but we don't have any honor for the sake of the Muslim. There's a problem there. When we start worshiping things more than we worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when we allow things to fill up the love of our heart more than the understanding of what Allah really said in His Sharia, because everything that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has said and done is in its proper place. Allah ta'ala, He mentions in the end of Surah Al-Hashr, He says, وَلَا تَكُونُوا كَالَّذِينَ نَسُوا اللَّهَ فَأَنْسَاهُمْ أَنفُسَهُمْ. Allah says, don't be like those who forgot Allah. And this is directly attached to, some of the scholars in Tafsir, they say, this is directly referring to who? The Munafiqeen of Medina and the Jews of Medina. They say, don't be like the Munafiqeen and the Jews of Medina who forgot the rights of Allah upon them. They forgot that they're supposed to aggrandize Allah. وَمَا يُعَظِّمُ اللَّهُ سُبْحَانَهُ. They didn't make Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as great in their hearts as He should have been. So they disobeyed Allah. And when you disobey Allah, there's one of the most worst punishments that happens to the one who disobeys Allah is that he forgets what's good for himself. So when a person disobeys Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and they turn away from the guidance of Allah, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allows them to forget what's beneficial for their own self. And they start to move in a way that's haphazardly. They start to move in a way that actually harms themselves. And we see this, that some of the Muslims have turned away from the remembrance of Allah. So Allah has put upon us humiliation, even here in America. We're humiliated not because of the kuffar. Sometimes we blame, the kafir. They could not do this if it wasn't because of us. If we knew how to stand up and embody Islam the way that we know we should, if we sacrifice for Islam the way that we know we should, no kafir on this earth can speak to us any type of way. No one can humiliate the Muslim. No one can humiliate the Muslim if the Muslim has taqwa and obeys Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There's no humiliation. Allah Ta'ala says in another ayah in Surah Al-Ma'idah, يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا أَوْفُوا بِالْعُقُودِ. O you who believe, fulfill your covenants. Fulfill your contracts. That's how it's commonly translated. But some of the scholars, they say this also includes fulfill the customs and the heritage of the people who came before you. That don't let that which the people who laid before you of good go to waste. It's our obligation to uphold every sacrifice, every drop of blood, every dollar that was spent to sacrifice for the sake of Islam. It's our job to continue to fulfill it. It's our job to uphold that. It's been a command from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that we don't let that go to waste. That we don't let it just be history. That we don't let it just be some stories that's told, but that we see it to continue. It's our obligation. There's no way around it. That we continue to stand tall. And that we don't give up. And that we hope and we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He allows us to continue where our fathers left off. And that's a big burden. Wallahi, sometimes I just wonder. My father passed away, rahimahullah. I wonder, would he be proud today to see what... And I wonder, one of the things that makes me continue to go further and go work harder is if someone says, man, subhanAllah, remember your father. This is enough for me sometimes. Because of carrying the burden of the weight of these great men, it's not an easy task. And we don't know if we're going to be able to fulfill it. We don't know if we're going to be able to walk in your shoes. Most likely not. They're too big for us. But we just hope, inshallah ta'ala, that we can continue the message, that we can be a cause for Islam to stay and not to die out. We don't want Islam to be on our watch, to be the one that says, Allah who? Who is Allah? I heard my grandfather saying this, but I don't know who that is. We don't want that to happen on our watch. I don't. So we ask Allah, remember when we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us the strength to be able to fulfill the footsteps, to fulfill the shoes of those who came before us, and to honor them. so that we continue to honor our ancestors like anyone and everyone else does. And this is one of the things that, subhanAllah, that we have a problem with some of our brothers, is that if you look at every other culture, they honor their elders. They honor their ancestors. They write poetry just to remember their ancestors. But us, subhanAllah, if we don't like one thing that one of our ancestors did, we write him off completely. As if he never existed. As if he didn't put in work. And some of our brothers, especially from amongst the youth, they think that what they're doing today is more important than what was done yesterday. The reality is that we can't do what we're doing today if the groundwork from the Ansar, from those who were already in the lands, who already established Iman, from what they've done. The work can't be done without that. And we need to work hand in hand with you all. We need it more than anything because we're confused at times. How to be able, sometimes I sit back and I said, man, what do I do in this situation? How do we get past this? There's so many new situations that's happening to the American Muslim. Look, yesterday I heard one of the elder brothers today. I heard him talking about this homosexuality issue, and he said some of the wisest things I've heard in this topic. I've never heard it before, and these are the things that come from our elders. And I was listening in the corner. I don't even know if he knows I was paying attention, but I heard the words he said, and I'm going to go back and use it. That's for sure, right? But the point is that we don't know how to move forward at sometimes. And we're stumbling and falling and tripping because of that, because without elders to pick you up and slap you sometimes. Well, that's the reality. That's what builds men. A man should be able to be chastised by another man and not feel any type of pride. Oh, why are you talking to me that way? I heard that some of the people they call our generation, the strawberry generation, meaning that we bruise easy. Right? You say something to us. We don't want to talk to you now for a couple of days, block you on our phone. I'm not talking to that brother no more. But reality, that's not a manly quality. That if somebody chastises you or corrects you, that now you want to find every fault that you can find with him. But you. The reality is, if your elders, your ancestors pull you up. I remember, I'm maybe one of the last generations where I could have still gotten a whipping from the people, from my neighbors. Today you can't even do that. Today, subhanAllah, even if you try to whip your own child, they might call the police. But the reality is that if we can't come back together as a community to help and assist each other, then we're going to fall short. If we can't get over our, whatever little differences that might occur between two people or two groups of people, then we're not going to have success. We have to say like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told the people to say, وَلَا تَجْعَلْ فِي قُلُوبِنَا غِلًّا لِلَّذِينَ آمَنُوا. Oh Allah, don't put any hatred or animosity in my heart to those who believe. Because we have to work together. If we don't work together, it will happen in our generation when the people say, Allahu, because these people are pushing a program to wipe out Allah. And if we let it happen on our watch, what will we say about all of our brothers who passed away? Those who were martyred in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. How can we honor them if we say that it happened on our watch and we didn't do anything? هذا وصلى الله عليه وسلم سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. جزاكم الله خيرا again for inviting me. I'm really honored, and alhamdulillah, I see Imam Ali walked in. Jazakum Allah khair. May Allah bless you all. Assalamu alaikum. Yes.
I'm going to step out and ask you to share some of that wisdom, because that issue is so prevalent now, and they're working so hard to normalize it. I'm talking about the homosexuality issue.
The Sheikh who said it might be better, but what I remember him saying was that when the people come, and I didn't think of it this way, but when the people come and they say that, they're homosexual or whatever it might be, he was mentioning that from the first thing he'll ask them, he says, okay, well, number one, what do you mean, right? If I'm wrong, you can correct me how he said it, right? Well, number one, what do you mean that you're homosexual? Are you coming here to say that you're committing zina? That you're doing something that's, haram? That's the first step of that. Number one, if you commit a wrong action in Islam, you're not supposed to broadcast it. If you committed, some type of fahisha, you don't go tell everyone I'm committing fahish. So the first thing is, listen, why are you telling me this, that you're committing zina? Then on top of this, are you telling me that you're doing this with someone the same sex as you? So the first thing is that, because what they want to do is normalize this crime. And the way that they try to normalize it with these lies, they tell that, oh, I was born, whatever they say. But the point is, as a Muslim, we understand that, number one, why are you broadcasting your crime? Are you going to be happy? Can a person who commits zina get in front of everyone and say, Salaam alaikum Muslims, how are you doing? I committed zina. No. So why do we allow or find it okay that a person who is saying, if they're a Muslim or not, that this is what I'm doing, why is it okay for them to broadcast that and people are trying to find ways to accept them? Muslims are not known to broadcast their sins. They're known to hide them. And may Allah guide them to and forgive them for it if this is a person's situation. But it's nothing to broadcast, nothing to be proud of. What do they call this thing? Pride? How can a Muslim be involved in a thing where it's called, proud about sinning? It's just, it goes against the complete foundation of Islam. And again, I might miss what he said, some of the things, but it was in this vein, I believe. Correct? Yeah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Alhamdulillah. Jazakallah khair, Imam, for that again inspiring presentation. So inshallah, we will acknowledge Imam Alameen. Give us a few words, few words, man. You don't have to go long. Just give us a few words of your wisdom, my brother.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. And alhamdulillah nahmaduhu wa nasta'inu wa nastaghfiruhu wa na'udhu billahi min shururi anfusina wa min sayyiati a'malina. Man yahdihillahu fala mudilla lahu wa man yudlil fala hadiya lahu. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lahu wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluhu sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Alhamdulillah. Assalamu alaikum wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillah. I was put on the spot to speak, right? SubhanAllah. Because, as Imam, we're trained to talk and deliver sermons and speeches. So inshallah, I wanted to, if Allah wills, I'd like to just give some nasiha, to myself first and to you. As a reminder, the Prophet ﷺ, this hadith is narrated by Imam Tirmidhi, and it's sahih. But in this hadith, alhamdulillah, there's so much wisdom and so much, good advice and instruction, for all of us. And it's a scary hadith. I call it the scary hadith, okay? It's scary. It reminds us, of our end. And that is the hadith where the Prophet ﷺ said that on the day of judgment, the son of Adam's feet will not move away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. until he's questioned about 5 things. 5 things. Number 1, what did you do with your life? Number 2, what did you do when you was a youth, younger? Number 3, what did you do, how did you earn your money, and how did you spend it? That's 3 and 4. And number 5, what did you do with your knowledge? MashaAllah. So in this narration, alhamdulillah, you know, it's something for all of us to reflect upon. SubhanAllah. Are we ready to be questioned like that? Are we ready? You know, can we answer those questions, you know, in a good way? Can we answer those questions that will be asked by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that, you know, in a way where we will be successful? Think about it. What did you do with your life? And so that brings us to the question of us understanding and knowing what our purpose is. وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. They are not created the jinn or the men except that they do ibadah to me. So again, so we will be questioned. Did we spend our lives worshiping Allah and serving Allah and working for His deen? You know? Or did we waste time? Do we waste time? So it's something for us to reflect upon, all of us. It's about serving Allah, yes. It's about working for His deen, absolutely. All right? So you got to ask yourself, are you ready to, can you answer that question? You know, oh Allah, yes, I worshiped you. I did my 5 salat. I went to the mosque regular. I gave in charity. I fasted in the month of Ramadan. I gave dawah. I did this. I obeyed your commandments. I did this. I helped the neighbors. I helped, you know, the people. I did such and such for your cause and for your pleasure. If you did, alhamdulillah, then keep doing that, because that's what you're supposed to be doing. Alhamdulillah. But if you're not doing that, and you're just sitting back, laying back, cooling out, you know, being easy, you know, no, man. You got to answer for your life. Some people waste their lives doing nothing, you know, being lazy. And the Prophet ﷺ used to seek refuge in Allah from being lazy. You see, so we as Muslims, again, as a reminder and as an advice, you know, we should always be proactive, working for the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And what did you do for your, you know, what did you do with your youth? It's, you know, as a young person, I was reflecting as the young brother kid that was talking. I remember when he was a little baby. SubhanAllah. That's our future. SubhanAllah. You know? And so he grew up. And so, you know, again, he grew up, alhamdulillah, worshiping Allah, serving Allah. Now he's a man now. He's an imam. He's teaching. He's giving dawah, alhamdulillah. Reminding the hadith what the Prophet ﷺ said concerning the young people. You know, one of the persons that will be under the shade of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's, you know, throne on the day of Qiyamah will be a young person who held on to his ibadah. Who held on to his ibadah. You know? And so I was hoping, you know, I wish some more younger people were here so I can remind them of that. Because again, like, you know, like Kid that mentioned, you know, like a lot of the young people, man, you know, they're off. You know? They're involved in a whole lot of bullshit, you know what I'm saying? So they're wasting their young, you know, their life, you know, they're wasting a lot of valuable time. You see, like the Prophet ﷺ said, value your youth before your old age. I don't know. Because being young is a time, you know, when you have, you know, strength and, you know, you have energy, you know, and you have vision and you want to do things. You see, that's how the Sahaba was. If you reflect, you know, alhamdulillah, the Prophet ﷺ, you know, was always around young people. Most people don't even realize it. They think, you know, that the Sahaba was a bunch of old people in their 40s and 50s and 60s. No, only a few was like that. Only a few people was the Prophet ﷺ's age and Abu Bakr's age. But most of those people, Sahaba, they were young people in their teens. Most of them were less than 30 years old. You know? And they were dynamic, and they were the ones, when the Prophet ﷺ came with his message, they were the ones that gravitated toward it, such the young people, subhanAllah. So we need our young people, really, man. So I thank Allah, alhamdulillah, raising up this young kid, and I pray that Allah will continue to raise up our young people to get them to understand the importance of the work that they have to do. A lot of them don't even realize and understand what their purpose in life is, man. You see? To worship Allah, to serve Allah deen. You ask, what's your goal? What's your ambition? What do you want to do with your life? Oh, I want to be a doctor. Oh, I want to be a lawyer. Oh, I want to be this. I want to be that. I want to be a contractor. I want to get into the HVAC thing. I want to do this. All this worldly stuff. And they never tell you anything about the deen. But I look around and see some of the elders, Imam Esau, we from the old school. So we came into Islam as youth. And they can tell, we came as young people, and there was a whole lot of us, and we was fired up about working for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's religion. We live in a different time now. So where the young people at? So inshallah, those of you who are present can take it to those who are not here, inshallah, you know what I'm saying? That they have work to do, and that they are valuable in our community, and we need every one of them, and they need to have they need to grasp, the vision, of establishing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala deen, because that's how the Sahaba was. They're the ones, that set the example for us. There's a lot of talk going on in the Muslim community about our children, right? How a lot of the young people are becoming atheists. They're leaving Islam. Have you heard that? Any of you heard that? Yeah. They said it's growing, In fact, the next conference, the American Muslim Jurists, it's a scholarly imams organization. It's national. A lot of scholars are part of it. I usually go to their theme this year is the rising tide of atheism in the Muslim community. That's what they're going to talk about. In other words, the imams and the leaders are going to gather at this conference in March to talk about this dilemma, this problem in our community. And I said, why is that? Why so many young people becoming atheists? Why? Part of it is because, hey, man, we send them to the Catholic schools. You send them to the Catholic schools, so they sit with the non-Muslims all day, and their teachers and the educators in them colleges and on them campuses and whatnot, don't believe, you see? So when they go to those biology classes and those science classes and whatnot, you see what I'm saying? All of them pursuing them degrees, and I'm not saying nothing wrong with that, you see, but they're being bombarded, with secular ideas and atheism. You see, that's the bottom line. And so after a while, 4 years, 8 years, or however long that a person pursues that degree, subhanAllah, they lose their deen. And they come home one day and say, I don't want to be Muslim no more. So like a lot of the du'a, those brothers who give dawah to these people, they're trying to bring them back. You see, it's a problem. But I remind myself, and I remind our young people, and I remind all of us, subhanAllah, we look at the example that Allah gave us in the Sahaba, the companions of the Prophet sallallahu. What school did they go to? What school did they go to? Allah. They went to the school of Rasulullah sallallahu. Allah raised them and gave them the ability, through His mercy, man, to conquer the Persians and the Romans and the superpowers of their day. Bottom line, they established Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala deen, and they were trained and they were educated in the school of Rasulullah sallallahu. And that's the school we really need more than anything else. You see, so you thinking that you're going to become successful in this life going to the schools of these people? No, that'll take you right out of Islam. And that's why atheism is growing amongst the Muslims, And it's something that we need to reflect upon and remind our kids and our young people, be careful, son. Be careful, daughter. You know what I'm saying? All right? Don't lose your deen. And so again, alhamdulillah, so our young people need to reflect. This is the time for them to produce, and work for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, alhamdulillah. And the third question again, how did you earn your money? As an advice, we should all ask ourselves how much, we should make sure that our earnings is halal. That's important. But there's so many schemes out there now, Muslims involved in all kinds of stuff. You see, so we gotta be careful how we get our money and how we spend it. And make sure we spend it on the right causes to promote Islam and to support the Muslim community. That's important. Support the project. To come out tonight and to support this banquet and to help Masjid Ta Ha. Oh Allah, this is what we do. We're helping the Muslims, trying to support them. I told the brother, I said, look, I was supposed to go out of town today for some medical issues, but it was canceled. So now I have to go to the banquet. Come on, brother, let's roll. We have to support our communities. Alhamdulillah, Rabbil Alameen. You see, so again, spending on the causes, of our community and our ummah is important. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to ask us, where do we spend our money? How do we spend it? See? Should we spend it on foolishness? Things that we're just wasting money. or do we spend it on the thing that's going to promote Islam and support our community? These things are important. What did you do with your knowledge? Allah. What did you do with your knowledge? That's the fifth question. When I think about a lot of these things, what did I do with my knowledge? What do you think that this hadith is talking about? The knowledge that this hadith is talking about is the knowledge of the deen. The knowledge of the deen. Which, when you think about it, if you want to be questioned, what did you do with your knowledge? That means you should have some knowledge of La ilaha illallah. We go, I didn't understand the kalima. I didn't understand the importance of La ilaha illallah. I didn't understand Rasulullah. I had no knowledge of Allah, who Allah was. I didn't know this man Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He said, so you will have knowledge of that. Basically, all of us have knowledge of the 5 pillars of Islam. We all know the Hadith of Jibreel. Hadith of Jibreel, right? Hadith of Jibreel. We should know that hadith, where Jibreel came to the Prophet when he was sitting with the companion, and he asked him 5 questions. What is Islam? What is Islam? What is Iman? What is Ihsan? What is the hour? Tell me some of the signs. And the Prophet answered those questions. And then when Jibreel walked away, he said, oh, Umar, do you know who that was? Lord of the Messenger, no, that was Jibreel came to what? Teach you your religion. So Jibreel came and summed up the whole deen in one hadith. That's the knowledge. What do you do with your knowledge? Did you understand it? Did you know these 5 pillars? Did you know these 6 articles of your faith? Did you know your deen? It's all wrapped up in that one hadith. If you learn that and master that hadith, you got it. You're always prepared to talk about Islam. You don't have to be no scholar. Allah won't ask, what did you do with your knowledge? What did you do with your la ilaha illallah? You say, what did you do when people ask you about Islam? You start talking about Malcolm X, or you start giving an analysis of what's going on in the world and what the Kuffar doing to the Muslims, or you tell them again, Jibreel asks him, well, what is Islam? What is Iman? Did you give it to them like that? A lot of we're going to be responsible. Did you teach the people Islam? You see, you have to establish your own platform to give dawah. So the last one I was going to ask you, what did you do with your knowledge? You see, it's not an issue of, it's for the scholars to do, it's for the imams to do. No. We live in a time, where it's critical that everybody got to represent Islam. Everybody has to speak about Islam. And I close with this one narration, very beautiful story. It gives us it shows up, alhamdulillah, hey, we should never be shy of giving dawah. And we take the example of the companion, And this hadith, again, is Sahih hadith, and it tells a story about a man that came from a city that lived between, Medina and Taif. His name was Damam ibn Tha'lab. Whoever heard of him, raise your hand. Damam ibn Tha'lab. He's a tribal chief. Anyway, he lived in an area where the Prophet sent one of his representatives to give dawah to that area. And all the people rejected his message, except one. And that was Damam ibn Tha'laba. All right? So he listened to what the man said, what the prophet's representative said. So he goes to Medina and said, where's the prophet? Where's Muhammad? And so they directed him, he's in the mosque sitting with his companion. So he walked into the mosque and he approached the halakah, and he said, who is Muhammad? And the prophet said, that's me, I'm here. He said, well, listen, I'm going to ask you a few questions. I'm going to be kind of rough because I'm from the desert. Okay? I don't have the best manners, all right? But I'm going to ask you some questions about this religion, And the prophet said, okay. The prophet sallallahu was nice and cool and calm. So the prophet said, I'm going to ask you a question. He said, did you teach, your representative said that you said, no, I'm sorry. He said, who created the heavens? And the prophet said, Allah. He said, who created the earth? The prophet said, Allah. Who created the mountains? Allah. Wow. He said, your representative said that you were sent by Allah. The prophet said, yes. They said, you're the messenger of Allah. The prophet said, yes. Your messenger, your representative said you have commanded upon the people to make 5 prayers. The prophet said, yes. And they're fasting among the Ramadan. The prophet said, yes. And pay zakat. The prophet said, yes. Also, he went to all the pillars. The prophet said, yes. So he said, well, by him who in whose hand who created the heavens and the earth and the mountains. You know, I swear by Allah that I will do all of that what you just said, and I won't do no more. And then he left. And the Prophet ﷺ said, if he is truthful, he will be successful. But the story didn't end there. This is the beautiful part. SubhanAllah. So he goes back to his village and he goes to his wife and he says, you know, hey, stop worshiping Lat and Uzzah. They're false gods. There's only one God, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You see? And so his wife said, no, hush your mouth. The God will strike you dead. He says, foolishness. They can't strike anybody dead. They have no power to do anything. Allah is great. See? So ultimately she submitted, mashallah, and she accepted his dowry. She became Muslim. Then he goes to his father, right? And encountered the same thing. His father resisted at first, but then his father again took shahada. Okay? And then by that evening, his whole tribe had become Muslim. SubhanAllah. Say la ilaha illallah. MashaAllah. Now think about that for a minute. Why did I tell that story? SubhanAllah. Look at the all he had one sitting with the messenger of Allah, right? One sitting. And he asked him some questions about Allah, who was the creator. You know, to stop worshiping Lat and Uzzah. Man, establish the 5 pillars. You see what I'm saying? And said, okay, I got that. And he went back and told the people. That's all he could tell. He couldn't tell them nothing else. He had no dawah training. He didn't go to no imam conferences to learn about this. He sat, one said, how long did he sit? Maybe an hour, maybe less than an hour. The Prophet, he had enough to go back and convert his whole village, man. That's the kind of enthusiasm and zeal that they had. They understood the deen. They understood what the mission was. You see, they didn't sit with it. So this hadith really is like a reminder for all of us when we need to get busy. You know, the elders, you know, the young people, everybody, the brothers, the sisters, alhamdulillah, we have a responsibility. You see? And so whatever knowledge we have, alhamdulillah, we give it. And that's what Thalaba did. Jamal did Thalaba. That's what he did. Whatever he learned from the Prophet, you know, he gave. So you can imagine on the day of Qiyamah, when Allah asked him, you know what I'm saying? Well, what did you do with your knowledge? Oh, Allah, I converted my whole tribe. I told him what I knew. SubhanAllah. Allah will bless him. You see? And all of the good that the people did, you know, that became Muslim, he would get the blessing of that. SubhanAllah. So it's something for us all to reflect upon. So again, keep in mind that hadith, very beautiful hadith, you know, are we ready to answer those questions? You know, what are we doing in our lives? You know, what are we doing as young people? What are they doing? What are we doing with our money? You know, are we earning it correctly? Are we spending it in the right way? You know, what are we doing with our knowledge of Islam? Just a little bit. It's okay. Kul huwallahu ahad, Allahu samad, lam yalid wa lam yulad wa lam yakul lahu kufuwan ahad. Very, very important. You know, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala again bless you all. Thank you, man, for the opportunity. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Alhamdulillah, Jazakallah khair, Imam, Alameen, for the nasiha. Imam never fails us. When he's coming up, you know, bringing it straight to the word of Allah to do that. Inshallah, our next presentator is Imam Asim from Philly. He's going to give us some words as well. Alhamdulillah.
He said a couple.
Assalamu alaikum. Alhamdulillah. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Sayyidina Muhammad ashrafil mursalin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Wa ba'd. Alhamdulillah, brothers and sisters, this night is a very important night for us in that we're witnessing the call of truth. And I don't have very much to say. Me and the brother, we have to leave real shortly. But I did tell the Imam that I just wanted to convey to all of us that we need to reevaluate ourselves. Like Imam mentioned, what are we doing with our lives? A lot of us think I'm old. Just tell the brothers, I say, man, that some of the brothers from the Dar Islam movement, we was young. We was 19 to 20 years old. We was the men of the Ummah. And I talked to these brothers, I said, brother, we done got old, man. And we laughed, you know. Like they 70, 71, 72 years old. You know, I'm a little younger, man. But anyway, the understanding that we had then, we have to regain it. We have to regain the understanding that Allah's deen is the ultimate objective of our lives. You know, me personally, I don't want to die no other kind of way. Now, we buried our brother Imam Khalil, may Allah have mercy on him, a couple weeks ago. Imam was healthy, strong, vibrant, worker, soldier, everything you can imagine, and Allah took his soul. Boom, just like that. I mean, it's our turn, man. It's our turn to go. And we can go anytime. And this is why this is why the seriousness of my question to us is, what are we gonna do, man? I mean, ain't no time out. Ain't no time out. A lot of us say, you know, we got to the point now where we say, man, you know, let the young people do it. Yeah, there's a whole lot that they got to do. But it's a lot we still have to do. We have to be that encouragement for them. We have to be the know-how for them. Because they can do it, and then, you know, like we're talking about this new technology that the jinn didn't put here for us. Right? Now, if you don't think the jinn that put this stuff in, I mean, you look at it. Look at the stuff that's going on today. If you don't realize that the jinn has something to do with that, then I don't know what you have to realize. You understand what I'm saying? Like brother said, he gonna be riding down the street looking at this in his car. If you think the jinn ain't got nothing to do with that, anyway, brothers and sisters, my thing tonight is for us to realize we have to recommit ourselves to this deen. We have to recommit ourselves to the struggle of establishing Allah's deen on whatever level Allah allows us to establish on. And, you know, again, I'm not talking about, we don't have to have no whole lot of money. Imam struggling, we all struggling. It don't take no whole lot of money to feed the poor. When someone comes up to the masjid and say, I need this, and we give them whatever we can give them, but we have to give it. We have to be organized to do all the things that the Prophet ﷺ encouraged us to do, and that's what we have to die upon. Now, anything else, I don't want to be a part of that. And we don't have much time, you know, and I know who I'm talking to in this room. All right? I don't see no young boys or young girls in this room. I'm talking to us. Now, we all know how old we is. Right? I mean, look around. Ain't no youth in here. You know, they talking about the youth. Ain't no youth in here. Right? I'm 68 years old and sick as a dog. So I know, you know, hey, look, we got to recommit ourselves, brothers and sisters. So I just wanted to say that to us, you know, again, Umar radiallahu anhu, he says, there's no Islam without Jama'ah. You know what that means? Now, you know, you can analyze it. Just think about it. He said, and who was Umar? I ain't going to give no whole thing about Umar. If you don't know who he is, you better find out. I'm talking about Umar, the second caliph in Islam. He says, there is no Islam without Jama'ah. He said, and there is no Jama'ah without Imam. Without having an Imam, a leader. And he said, it's no use to having a leader if you're not going to hear and obey. So, you know, again, with that, brothers and sisters, I just want to say, the success is in the Jama'ah. Prophet ﷺ said it over and over and over. He said the success is with the Jama'ah. We have to reestablish the Jama'ah, brothers and sisters. Now, I'm saying this because I know it's happening everywhere in America. The Jama'ah is diabolically assaulted and planned to be a failure. And, you know, everywhere you look, the Jama'ah is failing. You see? But we have to recommit ourselves to establish the Jama'ah and work for its success. And we have to die upon that. So, alhamdulillah, you know, I just want to call us to recommit ourselves to establishing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's deen, and to recommit ourselves to be foremost in establishing Allah's deen. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Alhamdulillah. Again, inshallah, I'd like to thank Imam Asim, the Nasiha, and again, insightful information. Inshallah. The Imams have gotten up here and it really brought it home to us, inshallah. You know? And the main thing with Nasiha is not just to hear it, but it's to retain it and to act upon it. Islam requires that from all of us, alhamdulillah. So the next is, we have some spoken word. We have Nadine and Muhammad. Muhammad. Uh-oh, I got a request for Muhammad. So whichever one. All right, maybe we save the best for last, Muhammad? Yeah. Nah, I'm just kidding. I'm just
I just wanted to share a couple of poems with you. One of the poems, when I first came to Atlanta, I saw Imam Jamil give a khutbah, and he talked about basically the ayats where Allah says that, O mankind, He made you into nations and tribes to get to know one another, not despise each other. And among His signs are the variations in our languages and colors. And O mankind, we have made you from two. He basically kept that frame. We all come from two. We all come from two. And so was able to put together a poem based on these particular ayats, and hearing the Imam give the khutbah. The Imam, again, he was one of the leaders of the Black nationalist movement, and to hear him talk about the universality of mankind that Islam promotes, it was just astounding to me in my young, I came into Islam when I was 23, I'm 64 now. So alhamdulillah, Allah has allowed me to grow into Islam as an adult. This is, we all come from two. Understand that through truth there's a righteous end. So strive for truth and shine your soul. Seek inner tranquility, for you must struggle within yourself before you struggle against anyone else. Learn that we all come from two. I am no different than you. Black man, brown man, yellow man, white man, we all come from two. Let not your emotions rule you and separate your needs from your wants. Seek knowledge from the cradle to the grave so that you can truly be free and engrave on your children's hearts the meaning of true freedom. Nothing exists without the knowledge of He who has created all. The only reality is His presence. Break away from this temporal world and seek the finer things of life to come. Seek to become an explorer of your inner space. Seek to find that real, humble, and serene you that arise. Arise in one untruthful being scorned, then direct change for the betterment of mankind. Fear death not, for all souls shall taste of death. Don't despair, for despair breeds disbelief. And surely peace shall come as the calm follows the storm. Truth and falsehood are timeless entities that do not diminish with the setting of the sun. They shall never change, so why must man? Why must man? Is it because he has been lost in time? Does he not realize that time's end awaits the Creator? Waits the Creator seeking retribution from those who practice iniquity in their temporal lives. Oppression shall cease to exist until there's no one left to oppress. So seek relief in inner peace. Learn that oppression is worse than death. Oppression, we all come from two. I am no different than you. Though our hues are different, our Creator is not. He created us all from two. Oppress, pray for peace within. Pray for peace within so that any semblance shall bring us closer together. We must struggle within ourselves before we struggle against anyone else. For the solution lies within, cleansing yourself of sin. There are two paths that man can take in his temporal life. One straight, pure, good, full of submission and humility. Truth and good deeds pave this path, and righteousness lights the way. The other path is dark, crooked, barren, full of despair and disbelief. Sensory pleasures pave this path, but at its end is grief. Both paths lead to the Lord, the Creator, the giver of peace, who has created all things on earth and allows the sun to rise in the east. The Creator burdens not a soul beyond its ability to bear. All despair comes from within. So spend your life seeking your personal path. And once you find that special road, then begins the tedious task. The task of purging yourself of sin and cleansing your inner mind. Spiritual growth is what you'll attain, and a new, brand new you is what you'll find. You'll learn there's one God, one Creator, maintainer, and sustainer, who has created all from two. We all come from two. I am no different than you. Black man, brown man, yellow man, white man. We all come from two. We all come from two. Alhamdulillah, that's a poem. We all come from two. I usually do it with my group, and I wanted to ask everyone to make dua for my group, the Dawah Ensemble. And we're getting old too. I think we're going into our 40th year of reciting as well. This next poem was a poem I wrote after 9/11, because what happened, we found that prior to 9/11, there were many Muslims who were just really talking about struggle, talking about establishing the deen. And then after 9/11, many Muslims ran for the hills and they cowed down. And they stopped talking about assertive Islam and about promoting Islam. And so there's a poem, it's based on a poem from World War II. There was Martin Niemöller. He was a Lutheran priest. And he wrote this poem based on the cowardice of the intellectuals during Hitler's regime. And he talked about how they came for the trade unionists and I did nothing. They came for this person and I did nothing. And when they finally came for him, there was nobody left. And so in our day and time, in this new Hitler in the White House, we find that we have the people are being economically assaulted. We find that the people are being, the people in immigration, the environment is being assaulted. So you have so many assaults going on, but we have to speak up. You know, as Allah says, He will always have a people who enjoin the right and forbid the wrong. And I call that the last tribe. And we have to be of the last tribe standing. They came for them, and nothing was said. And then they came for them, and nothing was said. And when they came for me, and nothing was said. And when they came for you, no one was there. Who will be the last tribe standing and demanding as we confront the oppressors of the planet? As the spawns of the slave traders parade throughout the earth, masquerading as victims as they deliver due process from the sky. Who will be the last tribe standing and demanding that the wronged are righted, that the environment now blighted is restored to a level of balance? Who will be the last tribe standing as right wings flying, white wings over the abyss? Something's amiss, seeing the enemy behind every nook and cranny. Who will be the last tribe standing if they come for me in the morning? Who will be among the morning because they will get you in the evening? As paranoia hovers over the republic like a pus-filled cloud, raining down infected thoughts on those whose souls have been bought by fascists disguised as patriots. Any perceived threat to the status quo must go. Dissension is in suspension. All must bow to the sacred hues, red, white, and blue. No alternative system will be tolerated. Any attempt at this will be obliterated. Free speech will cost you your life. They came for them, and nothing was said. And then they came for them, and nothing was said. And then they came for me, and nothing was said. And when they came for you, No one was there. They came. Sports stadiums will be transformed into prisons. Prisons will be transformed into torture chambers. Graveyards will be viewed as refugee camps. Refugees seeking relief from the spirit famine that grips this place like the noose around the neck of the condemned. Corrupt politicians engage in deceitful diction, playing to the highest paying, spiritually destitute, fully clothed prostitutes, giving away the people's gold to robber baron industrialists bloated with the sweat of the populace who blindly follow like lambs to slaughter, not knowing their fate until it's too late. Who will be the last tribe standing as people of conscience are asked to make reservations for reservations? Who will be the last tribe standing as the old imitate the young and the young have nowhere to turn but on themselves because wisdom has become extinct? Who will be the last tribe standing as neighbors are no longer near, as love is replaced by fear, as courage is discouraged? Who will be the last tribe standing as colonialism spreads its myopic vision, the wolf lulling the sheep, the wolf lulling the sheep to sleep? Who will be the last tribe standing as rabbis, priests, and imams all bludgeoned into compliance due to switch reliance from Allah to the Dajjal? Who will be the last tribe standing as colonialism spreads its myopic vision, the wolf lulling the sheep to sleep? Who will be the last tribe standing? We pray that it's us. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Alhamdulillah, Jazakallah khair, Brother Dean, for the spoken word. Okay, now we have our young man, Muhammad. I'm watching this brother grow. You know, I'm watching him, I got my eyes on him. I'm seeing him grow. And alhamdulillah, he's not disappointing. You know, but come on, man. Give it up.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
How great is what I just said. Giving the salams the way it's read, not changing the meaning so that words aren't misleading. Sharing with the people peace, love, and blessings, telling them that we want their heart to keep beating, lungs to keep breathing, souls to keep feeding, and hopefully, inshallah, they'll pick up a book and have their eyes keep on reading. Urging to learn more about their religion. It's a command, not a decision. By the one who is giving, the one who has you living, the one you should be fearing, for every attribute of his is most definitely fitting. Now here you all are, sitting, listening. Some of you, if not then a lot of you, may know this, but then some may not. The salams we give compared to the other religions are not at the bottom, they're at the top. Our greeting is said to be the best of greetings, remembering what we say when we cross paths with those we are meeting. The salams is the best of greetings because it has the meaning of safety, and what it removes any little bit of hostility, strengthening the bonds of the brotherhood with something positive and good, understood? The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said that the two best things you can give in Islam is not only food for others, but it is also the salams. So once again, my brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Alhamdulillah. This first poem, I'm going to recite two poems. This first one, if you guys were here last time we were here, it's one I said before, so you might know this, and I'm sure some would like to hear this one again. It's called I'm Pleased to Be a Muslim. Bismillah. I am a Muslim, and no one can change that. My Islam is strong, and no one can break that. I pray 5 times a day, making sure I'm on the right path and never going astray. People out there like to come and say, hey, come to my party, let your salat delay. Back to them I say nay, for when delaying my salat, a great price I must pay. Shaitan is amongst you, whispering away to your heart, mind, and soul, because he's there every day. People like to talk behind our backs, and they wonder why people they love die from heart attacks. Peace for all people is what they lack. They'll soon learn the truth when Prophet Isa comes back. The last days is what we are living in. Day after day, time on this world grows even more thin. We all have to die somehow, someday. It's okay to cry because you know Allah don't play. I'm pleased to be a Muslim because I know it's worth it in the end. I listen and learn from the messages Allah had the Prophet send. They see me dressed in a thobe that reaches just above my ankles and no less. Now, because I'm practicing my religion, they want to call me a terrorist? You should know that this world is only a test, which is why we all have to strive to do our best. The believers do good, and for that they are blessed, because they know, after all of this, what's going to happen next. They want to tell me to go back to my country, but I was born here, living free. They want to call me Arabic and discriminate. Arabic is a language, not a race, so get your facts straight. They don't know how much it hurts, the hatred that has been toward us since childbirth. But ooh, if they knew the truth, they would be begging to convert. I'm pleased to be a Muslim in this religion of peace. After a day of fasting, we sit down and have a feast. I love Ramadan because it helps me get closer to my Lord. Oh, and be reminded of the angels that always record. Ramadan is a month of fasting. Only the believers who know how to control their urges get the blessings. I also love Ramadan because it teaches you discipline, as well as itikaf when you come out glistening. But wait, they're not listening. The ignorant Muslims and non-believers who still have hope deep within. We try to tell them that after death there is a great reward. But you know what they say back? This religion, it's too hard. It's very sad to think of the ones we love who aren't practicing burn in Allah's flames. But hey, we tried to tell them, and it's a shame. But when the day of judgment does come, inshallah, I'll be happy to say that I'm pleased to be a Muslim.
Alhamdulillah. Allahu Akbar.
This next one, I just wrote frequently, so I don't know it that well. So I'm going to do my best, inshallah, without messing up. But if I mess up, please forgive me, inshallah. Bismillah. What are we doing that's right? Are we walking away from the darkness and running towards the light? Measuring our deen compared to the love of the dunya, checking if it has reached the great height? We need to rewind, look inside our minds, see what we might find. That is, if you still can see, because who knows, you may be blind. I know brothers that like to take a sip of wine, and brothers who like to pick up girls that they think is fine. I know sisters that like to show what they must hide, and when you ask them why, they say, they've tried. Guess what? You know what Allah is going to say on the day of judgment when you're hoping to enter the gates of Jannah? Deny. I've seen some Muslims that smoke and drink, and I watched how fast Allah took their lives before they can even blink. When it comes to our religion, I've witnessed so many Muslims sink into the deep dark ocean of the dunya and watch their faith in Islam shrink. Muslims that could care less of the things that they put in or on their bodies, such as ink. Brothers and sisters, think. I need you to think. Are our minds in sync? What are we doing that's right? When we line up for salah, are we making the ranks tight? Are we going to let shaitan shroud us in his darkness and make us lose our sight? Are we going to let the angel on our left always right? Are we going to let our hatred for others take control and have us backbite? It's time to wake up. Open your eyes and see what's corrupt. Ask yourself what needs to change before all the time we have left in this world goes to waste. There's no time to move at a slow pace. We have to make haste so that when we pass on, Allah may put us in the right place. Yes, I'm talking about Jannah, and inshallah, we get to have a taste. We must never forget what Allah has done for us and what we must do for Him. It's time to kick out the haram and bring the halal in, to cleanse ourselves and remove us from any of those sins. And the moment we do is the moment we feel like we win against shaitan and all those evil jinns. You don't want to be the one coming home one night and your parents asking you, where have you been? Brothers and sisters, it's time to pick up the Quran and begin. Because it's, as I said before, time is getting thin. I always wondered why the Muslims that don't practice continue to do what they do. When the words of Allah in the Quran are true. Ar-Rahman allama al-Quran, khalaqa al-insan allamahu al-bayan. The Beneficent, He taught the Quran, He created man, and He taught us etiquette, which is to say, He gave us our Islam. Allah also says, فَبِأَيْ عَلَاءِ رَبِّكُمَا تُكَذِّبَانِ. Which of the favors of your Lord will you deny? The one who made the earth beneath the sky. He can give you death as He gave you life. So which of the favors of your Lord will you deny? What are we doing that's right? Are we prepared to fight? Prepared to fight the upcoming evil with all our might? Can we honestly say that we can come together as a community and unite? Shine upon the darkness of this world Allah's light? Brothers and sisters, I ask you one more time, what are we doing that's right? Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
He get it from his mom.
You heard that, right? You get it from his mom. You know that.
I'm
That's a good mind.
I'm a part
Mashallah, mashallah. Dad, you had something to do with it, but he gets it from his mom. But anyway, you know, alhamdulillah, you know, it's, you know, like the future, sometimes it seems blank, and sometimes it doesn't seem like, you know, it seems like it's going in the other direction where it should go. But then when you see youth like this come up here, you know, brother, in Imam, you know, young people like that, then you say, you know, there's hope, you know, there's hope, because it doesn't take the many to make this thing go the way it's supposed to go. You know, I remember there's a hadith about Umar, and he came into the masjid, and he came across a man, he walked past him, and one of the companions, one of the believers, and he heard him making a dua, and the dua that he was making, it says, make me of the few, make me of the few, make me of the few. So to Umar, that was strange. You know why? You know, what kind of dua is that? To say, make me of the few. So afterward, he called the brother over, and he asked him about this dua. You know, what is this dua you make me of the few? Well, he said when he reads the Quran, and there's verses in the Quran that says only a few will believe. Only a few will go to Jannah. Only a few, you know, with such and such, with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then, you know, the scholars, when you can research that hadith, they not only convey the hadith, but they give you all the ayats that deal with only the few. And so Umar, he praised Allah, and he recognized that there are some people amongst him that's even just smarter than Umar. This is the humility of Umar. You know, so this is it. So now I always tell my children, I tell myself when I say, look, it's no problem being the odd one out of the group. You know, we are odd, we are strangers. The Prophet ﷺ said that Islam would be like it was in the beginning. It was strange to the people. And he said, blessed are the strangers. So we're strange to them. So alhamdulillah, you know, good minds like this, you know, like it really gives you hope. It gives you, it's like a new release on life again, because you know the direction that this place is going is not going in the direction that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has intended for. But the hope is in the Muslims, and that's why, you know, we have to support the imams, we have to support the masajids, we have to keep it going. And I'm talking about the masajids, like I said earlier, I'm talking about the grassroots masajids. The masjids that's been established, you know, I had an issue where a brother, you know, normally like we have a policy in the masjid, you know, where if somebody comes traveling, or, you know, people are falling on hard times and they don't have nowhere to stay, you know, we give them 3 days, right? And if we want to extend the days, that they would negotiate and so forth. But one brother came, and you know, I gave him 3 days, and I was telling him, you know, like, this is what we do. And then he explained to me that he had called another masjid, and this is casting no aspersions or castigating or indicting, you know, any of our foreign brothers, you know, and so forth. But I'm just giving you what was given to me. And he said, you know, the brothers that he called, you know, they were Africans of African descent, they were Africans and so forth. And he said the first thing that they asked him was, you know, are you African? And he said, no, I'm an American or African, whatever, I'm African American. And he said, well, you need to go to the American Muslims, you know. And that really touched me, you know. I'm disheartened to hear something like that, you know. And that's why grassroots masajids are very important. And this is not to indict any of our foreign brothers, because there are many of our foreign brothers and the brothers overseas that have programs for destitute, you know, individuals and families, and they take care of families, and they go out and they feed the needy and so forth. But this is just one incident that needs to be corrected. You know, but one thing we understand in terms of the indigenous, and we have to give credence to the indigenous Muslims and so forth, is that we feel people's pain because we come from that, and we understand. And then you remember the ayat when in respect to dealing with the people, whether they're Muslim or non-Muslim, and if you feel that the people are going astray to such an extent, is not to condemn them, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He reminded the Muslims that remember you were once like them. You know, so we have a connection, you know, and that makes us understand people more than we would. Tolerance and being patient and continue to reach out, never giving up in terms of reaching out. So alhamdulillah. So inshallah, I'm going to call up Imam Isa, you know, to close us out. Oh, excuse me, Imam, excuse me, and I want to acknowledge Imam Qasim Khan, inshallah, so come up, Imam, to close us out. No. Imam, you know how we do. We pass the banner. So come on and close us out, inshallah. Jazakallah khair.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillah. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala ali Muhammad kama sallaita ala Ibrahim wa ala ali Ibrahim innaka Hamidum Majid. Allahumma barik ala Muhammad wa ala ali Muhammad kama barakta ala Ibrahim wa ala ali Ibrahim innaka Hamidum Majid. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasul. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Wa las innal insana lafi khusr illa alladhina amanu wa amilu as-salihat wa tawasaw bil haqq wa tawasaw bis sabr. Respected Chairman, respected Brother Isa, respected Imams, Sheikhs, scholars and sisters and all children and all those of other faiths. Tonight is a very important night for this organization, as tonight is a night that we're here, inshallah, to support our brother Isa, support his organization and support Islam. Today we have a lot of excuses that we can't come this far at Bayside. Sometimes we make excuses we can't go to Brooklyn. Sometimes we make excuses we can't go to the Queens Village, or the case may be. But many of us, inshallah, need the support. It is the hijrah and the nusra. Is that when you need support, I'm with you. When I need support, you are with me. Brother Isa, or Imam Isa, has always been very, very, very much involved in dawah work. And I can tell you, we go back years ago when there was a problem with the Jews in Atlantic Avenue, Masjid Farouk. And I remember Brother Isa got up there with a mic and blast the Yahud. And it was not very, very nice to see, how they took it. We went back years ago that, he supported me, and I look forward, inshallah, for his continued support. But remember, the amount of people is not important. What is important is the quality of the people. And the different speakers that talk about dawah, enjoining right and forbidding what is wrong, and to be in the religion of Islam. I just came from another function in Richmond Hill Islamic Elementary School. A sister, died. And how she died is that some people came in from Guyana, South America. Everybody know Guyana, right? Am I right or wrong? Everybody know Guyana.
Yes.
So, is that right? So, the brother and sister came and she housed them in the home. She gave them the opportunity whereby they could stay there, sleep there, and be happy. It so happened that after 3 months or so, she asked them for some hadiah, some money that whereby that she could pay the rent, and she could look after the home. They refused to do that, and the night the brother got a gallon of a gasoline, and he poured it in front of the home. She was disabled. She could not escape, and she died. So to show you, right, that you try to help people, and instead of them give gratitude to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and these are Muslims I'm talking about. Muslims I'm talking about. You know what he did? After he threw the gasoline and he lit the match and she was burning, he left and he went 1 block away and sat in his car and looked at the house being burned. It so happened that a police guard got the scent and followed the scent to the car. And when you follow the scent to the car, the dog started to scratch on the car, and the police wanted to know why the dog is scratching on the car. When they opened the door, they saw him in there, they questioned him, and they held him. So my dear respected brothers and respected sisters, many of us are happy today, and many of us, we have an opportunity, right, to enjoy life. But there are some people in other countries who are poor, who are needy. Today in Japan, what's happening in Japan, in the monsoon and all the rain that is falling, right? People upstate New York, right? People in the Atlanta, and Georgia, Mississippi, big problems in Florida.